Couldn't agree more. 2GB radio broadcaster Luke Grant joins me now from Sydney to discuss this and more. Luke, how are you, mate?
Rowan, lovely to see you. How are you, mate?
And very well, very well. So what do you think? Does standing around with no shoes on in a barefoot circle actually help the cause, Luke?
Well, let's be honest, of course it doesn't. I mean, one of the unfortunate things with free speech is that sometimes these events are going to enter our lives and we can do with them what we choose. I'm not going to be persuaded by a bunch of non-shoe-wearing cricketers at the almighty SCG. But the point you made before, Rowan, I agree with it. And can I just factor this in, that the Australian cricket team is one of the iconic brands. It's one of the great things that brings the Australian people together. A few years back, it was trashed with the actions of a few cricketers in South Africa. I don't believe that the Bradmans or the Bennos or the Chappells or any of those who've had the ability and the toughness to wear that cap ever saw a time where it might be turned into an avenue for people to speak a political view. Now, it's all right for them to hold that view. That's entirely a matter for themselves. We do have freedom of speech. But the national team should not be taken hostage by at the request of media advisors, sports CEOs, or even players looking for a bit of attention in scenes like this. I just don't think the average Australian wants to see this.
I couldn't agree with you more, Luke. Now, listen, just moving on, there was a 30-hour battle in the New South Wales Upper House, and now New South Wales' controversial energy bill has passed, amid only one person stood up to try and block this nonsense, which was, of course, One Nation's Mark Latham, who did his best to block it. Now, Luke, the Federal Energy Minister, Angus Taylor, he says he wasn't consulted on the legislation. The plan itself is extraordinary and seems to me, here we've got a levy. We've suddenly got some kind of green levy introduced by, of all people, a Liberal government. What's your take on it, Luke?
Well, the big thing, mate, is you've got a bill that apparently is agreed to by the ALP and the Greens. And the only people in the room who are a bit uncomfortable was the original, or one of the original offsiders, and he's made in One Nation. So I think when every party comes together like that, we've got reason for concern. Look, well done, Mark Latham. You know, it is the Parliament is where you want people to speak their view. People say, oh, we kept the bill away from passing for 30 hours. So we damn well should have. And if you read some of his speeches I did today, very sensible suggestions like those new modular, I'm going to say it, nuclear power generators, just completely dismissed. We've got oodles of that resource here in Australia. These new generation power plants are just they're tiny. They're different technology. They're as safe as any other form of generation. They're absolutely brilliant, but for some reason, and purely ideological reasons, they're dispatched to the boundary, sorry to use that cricket expression. So Matt Kean of the left, New South Wales Liberals, you can only assume of the left. There's been rumblings out of Macquarie Street about the cabinet process there. So I don't know if there have been deals done, but I reckon if every Liberal was given the opportunity just to spend a moment reflecting, would they, all of them, agree that this was sensible policy, that this was where we were taking the nation's #1 state? And I think many would probably find trouble in that. They didn't speak up, and there's trouble in that.
Well, Luke, you're absolutely right, and I'm completely gobsmacked that a so-called Liberal government has passed basically green legislation into New South Wales, the most successful state. But it gets worse. There we have Scott Morrison on his G20 Zoom climate conference today. He spoke out about climate action this week at the virtual G20 summit. And so during the event, Scott Morrison spoke of Australia's commitment to meeting its goals under the Paris Climate Agreement. Now, Luke, Federal Labor argues that the target is not ambitious enough, but we had an election. It was the climate change election only last year, which we thought we won, but apparently not. What on earth is Scott Morrison doing, and are our targets ambitious enough, or are they going to get worse? Your thoughts?
No, well, you know, it's a strange concept here. Can we just consult the Australian people and give them a break? Is there any way we might just do something to get manufacturing back into this great country, so pensioners can pay their power bill. And here's a wonderful thing: pay their power bill and eat. I mean, this should be the number one consideration for government. All the other stuff plays a role, no doubt, and the political reality is that in some circles it plays a huge role. So, you know, ScoMo, please stand up for Australia. We'll do what we need to do, but we'll also do it in a way where we don't cripple the joint. And you know what, Rowan, the point you made there about that being the climate change election, every bloody election is now the climate change election. And every time they have one of these, they seemingly go down in a screaming heap, the climate change fans. So, you know, let's move on. If I can borrow something from the great man, let's do something. Let's put Australians first. I don't want to say make Australia great again, but you know where I'm coming from, Rowan.
Absolutely.
Please consider the taxpayers and business, and let's give Australia a chance to kick some goals and move on.
Exactly. Luke Grant from 2GB, always great to chat to you, mate. And I enjoy listening to you early on a Sunday morning as I'm driving in for Outsiders. There you are. I'm one of your big fans.
Well, I'm glad you're there. Can I tell you, my mum is your hugest fan. Loves you.
Mrs. Grant, we love you too. Luke Grant, thanks so much, mate. Take care.